Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Market Pulse series. My name is Rufas Kamau, Markets Analyst at FX Pesa. So today we are going to be having a very interesting session as we try to digest what currently happened with the US CPI data. And once we understand that, then try to look at a couple of charts and of course, project how markets may be moving tomorrow. So once you join in, you can just say hi in the live comment section, and these will confirm that everything is working just fine. All right, let's get things started. I'll be starting by sharing my screen. So inflation data came in at 3.7%. This was the same report or similar number that we saw in August, where inflation jumped from 3.2% to 3.7%. But then the overall consensus in the market was that there was a good chance that the inflation report would drop further back downwards to 3.6%. But instead, we saw inflation maintaining the same level, and the reaction in the market was a very strong dollar. So inflation moderated in September as energy prices eased from the previous month, and used car prices continued to decline, according to the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics released Thursday morning. So the CPI showed inflation rose 0.4% over the month and 3.7% over the previous year on a headline basis in September. So a deceleration from August 0.6% month-over-month increase, and in line with August 3.7% annual rise. So both measures were slightly higher than our economic forecast of 0.3% month-over-month. Of course, we were expecting 3.6% annual increase. So in this case, the surprise was that the inflation number was higher than expected, and this is not something that the Fed is looking to achieve. So it's quite inconsistent. The Fed is looking to drop inflation back to the 2% target. So the fact that it has remained high at 3.7%, meaning there is more pressure on the Fed, keep tightening policy, which basically leads to a much stronger dollar. So on a core basis, and this is a core inflation, which basically means inflation without the contribution of food and energy prices, it came in at 4.1% over the last 1 year. And this is a slowdown from the previous reading that we saw in August, which was at 4.3%. So core inflation dropped from 4.3% down to 4.1%. So from this curve, you can see that inflation started rising from here at 0.2%. That was on May 2020. Then it went all the way up to June 2022, where it topped at 9.1%. Then for entire year, it has been dropping, with the lowest level seen in June at 3%. Then later on, went up to 3.2% before getting to 3.7%. So apologies for that. So from today's number, we were expecting this number to drop to 3.6%, but instead we saw a level of 3.7%. So US stocks were mostly muted in early trading following the release of the data. Treasury yields inched up less than 2 basis points to trade around 4.6%. So inflation has remained significantly above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Labor market, while softening in certain areas, is still tight, coupled with an upside surprise in wholesale inflation data. Suggests the Federal Reserve could continue raising interest rates. The Federal Reserve's latest meeting minutes, which were released yesterday, that is on Wednesday, basically showed policymakers support a more restrictive rate environment. So from what we saw is a Federal Reserve where members were divided. Some of them were considering holding interest rates at the current level of 5.5%, whereas others were advocating for one more rate hike, which would push interest rates to 5.75%. However, there was an overall consensus by all the Fed members to keep interest rates higher for longer. And this is the key fundamental factor that a lot of investors are looking at. So as long as interest rates remain higher for longer, then bonds remain quite attractive, especially the short-term ones. And this basically dries out the supply of dollars, basically making the dollar much stronger. So with this in mind, now looking at the charts, this is how the market reacted. So first things first, we look at the dollar index. So immediately after the announcement of the news, there was a big jump higher. And then 5 hours later, we are seeing the dollar continuing to strengthen against other currencies. So for pound USD, we saw the market bouncing off a very strong resistance point, then dropping further downwards. So notice that yesterday's high was almost tested this morning, and then the market kept moving further back downwards as the dollar strengthened against the UK pound. So as for USD JPY, we were trading in this range for the last couple of days. The market managed to break through and has now closed higher to a previous high that we saw at 149.698, and now it's on course to hit 150 again. So remember, 150 was the trigger moment. It's when the USDN hit 150 that the Bank of Japan decided to intervene in the currency market. And this was last week where we saw this huge drop happening in the markets. So now, as the market approaches 150 again, there's that likelihood that the Bank of Japan would consider intervening in the markets again, which would push the pair back downwards. So Euro USD was the most interesting one because we had this long-term trend line happening on the 4-hour chart, where the market was currently testing this area here. And upon hitting it, there was an immediate reversal. If you're able to capture these, well and good, but the target remains all the way down. So we could be seeing the euro continue losing to the dollar and the market dropping further downwards to 1.04538. So from the 1-hour chart, this is how it looks like. So market hit this high yesterday. Today attempted breaching it again, but then failed and started moving back downwards. So there's still more downside for Euro USD. For USD CAD, we were in this range for the last 2 days. Then on the third day, basically broke this particular trend line after the announcement of the CPI news. And so far, we are only seeing bullish momentum. So first target is almost being hit at 1.36865, and we could see some further acceleration to a potential 1.37102. So as for gold, we can see the strong momentum that started early in the week. So on Monday, we opened with a gap. Market kept going up on Tuesday, Wednesday, and now we can see the market hitting this resistance here. So after hitting this resistance, and this is something we had discussed early in the morning during the market snapshot episode, where this previous support is now acting as resistance. So the moment gold hit that price, we have seen this reversal. So as the dollar continues strengthening, now gold is taking a step back, and we could be seeing gold retesting much lower prices. So as for AUD-USD, we saw the market basically failing to form higher highs. So if you look at the previous highs for consecutive days, they were getting higher and higher. And then if you compare today's high with the previous high that we saw yesterday, this was a failure in momentum, basically indicating some form of weakness. And then we had this support here. So the moment the price dropped and broke this support, there was all this continuation in the price keep going downwards. So as for the NASDAQ, we saw the market basically going up and testing a very important resistance level. So this is the trend line that has been established once the NASDAQ hit its high some time back. And this was on the 19th of July. So from here, we have seen 4 consecutive times where the market was unable to break resistance. And now on the 5th consecutive time, we are seeing the market testing that resistance. And the overall reaction in the market is quite clear for me. I'm seeing a market that was unable to break and is now attempting to move back downwards. And I think this is a real opportunity because it's just happening now compared to the other pairs that have already reversed considerably. So we could be seeing some further downside coming in from the NASDAQ. And of course, the correlation is the same for the S&P 500. So we could be seeing something similar, market making a reversal at this point and putting further back downwards. And for the Dow Jones, it's still a similar story. After hitting this resistance 1, 2, 3, 4 times, failing to break, and now we can see the acceleration downwards. So as for the UK oil, this is what we are seeing, a market that hit a double top formation, accelerated all the way down, reversed and formed a flag. So this was the big jump, and then the flag formation here, a breakout towards the lower side on the flag. And then after that breakout, we saw the market pull back, retest the breakout point, and is now moving further back downwards. So this is by all means a formation that indicates further bearish momentum. So we could be seeing the market retesting the day's low. And if it breaches here, then we could be seeing a low that we saw last week of around $83.39 per barrel. So as for the European equity indices, they seems to be strongly correlated with US equity indices. So now after the market managed to make this big rally here, we are seeing this trend line being broken here. So the trend line could be easily seen on the 15-minute chart, where the market was basically forming this. So after breaking below this area, we are seeing this acceleration here. So there's a good likelihood that as long as the US equity indices continue dropping, then the correlations could be present, and we see this continuation here. So it's the same thing here for the EU 50 cash index. So a market that had established a very nice rally, and the rally lasted, I think this is 4 days. So on the 4th day, this is when we are seeing a breakout. The market now moving further back downwards. So after that formation, what we are seeing here is some continuation of bearish momentum, and this could progress as long as the correlation exists. So as for Bitcoin, the bearish momentum continues, and now we are trading at 26,614, basically implying that the market was unable to bounce from here. So potentially we could see some further drop to 26,432. So as for New Zealand USD, it's a similar story. So after finding a very strong resistance at the previous high, so this was the previous high, market found resistance yesterday, pulled back downwards. Then today we are seeing some further downside. And of course, the targets remain all the way down at 0.58931. So US oil, similar correlation, almost the same chart as the Brent oil. So we still expect some further downside. So for the WTI, potentially we could be seeing price going for this level around $81.1 per barrel. Then USD CHF, or the USD trading against the Swiss franc, we saw this double top formation happening. Market broke to the lower side and kept going down, found support around 0.90, and now is moving further back downwards. So with the dollar strengthening against the Swiss franc, the very short-term target is the previous low, which is now a resistance. So 0.90937 seems like a nice target, but once the market gets here, there's that potential that it could stall. And of course, we don't know whether it will continue to break. So this will remain now our key focus point on whether the market breaks that level or bounces off that level. So as for the pound yen, this is what we are seeing. Market was strongly making a rally, finding a very strong resistance and now pulling back downwards. So today seems like one of those days where a bearish momentum starts in the market. And it's very nice if you can be able to monitor it and identify when that breakout happens. So from what I'm seeing in this chart here, I think the market is looking to make this breakout here, which would imply a potential drop, and we could be seeing the pound continue to weaken to the yen, and this might just as well be a very nice entry point for a short selling position. So with that in mind, we'll also be looking at what we're expecting in the markets for tomorrow. Majority of the news today have already been covered. So looking at the economic calendar, after the announcement of the CPI news, the IMF meetings continue. Then Natural gas storage came in closer to the expectation at 84 billion. It was down from 85 and the previous reading of 86. So if supply is going down, basically means that there is upwards pressure on prices. Then crude oil inventories at 10.2 million. So this is a big surprise in the market. Whenever you see a big jump in crude oil inventories, it basically means that there is increasing supply, which tends to be negative for prices. And this may explain what we are seeing with both US oil and Brent oil. So US oil clearly making a big drop after the report. And of course, if you look at Brent oil, it's also a big drop after the report, which basically implies we could be seeing some further downside as the inventories continue recovering in the US. So later on at 9 p.m., we'll be looking at the federal budget balance. This will be released at 9 p.m. So it has the potential to add some volatility in the markets, and volatility is expected to die out as we approach midnight, and then to pick up at around 4:30 a.m. when we get Chinese inflation data, which is expected to have increased to 0.2% year over year. And of course, for producer price index, we expect a number around 2.4%. So in the previous reading, there was a big drop to negative 3%. And now we expect a slightly smaller drop to negative 2.4%, meaning that producer prices in China are entering a disinflation period where prices of our producers basically keep going down, which implies that also consumer prices might be going down in the near future. So we also be looking at the trade balance before we look at the USD denominated trade balance. So tomorrow at 9:30 a.m., we look at producer price index for Switzerland, and then French final CPI at 9:45 a.m. before we listen to a speech from Bank of England Governor Bailey. Then later on, industrial production in the Eurozone, Chinese new loans, as well as M2 money supply. Then later on, we see two more speeches from ECB President Lagarde at 4 p.m. and FOMC member Harker at 4 p.m. Then we get CB reading index for the UK at 4:30 p.m. before we look at preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment survey, and of course, inflation expectation survey at 5 p.m. So as we approach the end of the week, we will be looking at the MPC member Conleaf. This will be happening at 7:30 p.m. And in this case, I think it's becoming quite a cycle where we have economic announcements happening over the weekend. So as we approach the end of the week, you should know that whenever there's big news happening over the weekend, they have the potential to move the markets, and we could be seeing big gaps as we open the markets next week on Monday. So the big news that will be happening over the weekend is a speech from Japan Buba President Nagel. Of course, this will be affecting the euro. Bank of England Governor Bailey will also be speaking at 6 p.m. This is expected to be affecting the pound. And of course, ECB President Lagarde will be also speaking at a tentative time on Saturday, which could also be affecting the euro. So what this means for you as a trader is that there's a potential risk that the market prices could be different on Monday than the closing prices on Friday, which may lead to big gaps, and as a result of that, an increased risk for any person holding open positions on Monday. So besides this, there's also the issue of the current war happening between Israel and the Hamas. And with this war continuing to attract other global leaders, we could be seeing other countries joining in the war, potentially Lebanon, Iran, and many other countries within the Middle East could also start participating. We have seen reports of the US, France, Germany, UK sending support for Israel. And if this accelerates over the weekend, then we could be seeing completely different prices at the market open on Monday. So you have to be completely aware of the risks that could arise over the weekend. So in that case, don't focus on leaving your open positions over the weekend. So besides that, you should always know that these sessions are not financial advice. They're not a recommendation to trade. They are basically designed to be completely educative, and you should always do your own research as well as your own due diligence. So I'm trying to check to see if you guys have any questions. First question I'm seeing here, drop my Telegram link. So you should be aware that this is my personal group. So it's not affiliated with the company. So the link is right there. Will the dollar strengthen until the end of tomorrow? There's a high likelihood that the dollar will continue strengthening. So remember, we have had 11 straight weeks of the dollar strengthening, and this being the 12th one, there's a high likelihood that the news could spur more activity in the dollar index. And from what we are seeing from today's price action, you can consider the Monday through Thursday price action. So this is Monday. So this is where the price opened on Monday. So price opened here, went up and then down. So Tuesday kept going down, Wednesday further downwards, and then today being Thursday, we have completely erased all the gains and moved even higher. So this basically implies a high likelihood that the dollar could continue gaining. And if we have a higher close than the open, then it basically implies some further upside. So in this case, if the dollar continues rallying tomorrow and perhaps gets to last week's high, then we could be seeing some pretty strong trends happening in these other pairs, especially the majors. So pound USD, USDN could reclaim 150. Euro USD could reclaim the previous low of 1.04538. USD CAD is very close to retesting 1.371. And of course, for gold, we could be seeing some further downside momentum, maybe even perhaps closing the gap before the end of the week. But for now, we work with the very short-term targets. So yesterday's low seems like a nice target, which is around 1858. And if we breach that, then 1845 becomes a target. So that's it for today. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your participation. And I hope to see you on the next one. So thank you, a lot of shots. Thank you, Malombe and Dennis, as well as Nyamari. Trapskid, thank you for your question and participation. And I hope to see you on the next one. So remember, tomorrow at 11 a.m., we'll be having another session presented by Samson Mzera. And of course, we'll be covering the price action and trying to understand the difference between now and in the morning, and then explaining how the setups may play out for the day.